for a semester or a year to the US that's institutionalizing the way that study abroad is in this country. I mean, these are also questions and conversations that we should be asking, because this is the pipeline into graduate work. And I'm a native Spanish speaker, so I segued fairly easily to work in Latin America, but someone who wasn't would begin a graduate career doing research in Mexico after probably on the wings of an undergraduate experience in study abroad. This is one way, for example, to encourage more students educating themselves within the Mexican university system to develop the kind of projects in the US and with US-based resources that we've been talking about. But you need some kind of pre-graduate pipeline that's very well established and increasingly and probably unfortunately commercialized in this country, but that's accessible to our contemporaries in the Southern world.
Do you want to add anything else about ideas coming in your field?
Well, that's a funny one to do.
Intellectual empathy?
Well, see, this is where you do have to learn the language, because, what I find with Mexican scholarship, there's this very, and I'm sure anyone working in Latin American studies can relate, there's certain texts that get translated and get promoted, and they develop a canonical status in the US that they don't have in the host country. Whereas there's other authors who are widely read in Mexico that no one here has ever heard of. So this is one of those places that overcoming kind of the rarefied nature of our own academic publishing industry requires a disciplined study of the language, but also seeking out mentorship in Mexico. And this is for everyone. This is for undergraduates, and this is for senior scholars. You need a mentor to help you formulate your bibliography on a particular topic in terms that are relevant in the host country and that probably aren't being translated well into the text that become accessible, and especially the very small body of text that are translated.
So Laura, just taking your work in reproductive politics, are there ideas and influences coming from the other direction that would be a good example of binational thinking?
I've actually written a bit about this. So I literally just came from a conversation with Nancy McLean about her book, Democracy in Chains, where she's talking about the relationship of the Mount Pelerin Society, which gave us the word neoliberalism, and how those ideas came to the United States. And among a certain critical core in the US Academy, we talk about neoliberalism. And that, and especially, particularly feminist scholars have talked a lot about neoliberalism, and geographers like David Harvey. And it's a key concept for U.S. social science and theory. And one of the places that it is most frequently attributed, where did we get a critical perspective on neoliberalism? Well, from Europe, of course. And I'm like, that is so exactly wrong. On the contrary, it came from Latin America to the United States. And it came as much in capillary form through activist circles, from Zapatismo to the Battle for Seattle and the anti-WTO movement, and thence to places like Occupy. And so here's this high theory concept my students think that they can't actually understand, that they're going to struggle with, and they're going to struggle with its history. And I'm like, just go stand on a street corner in Mexico for 15 minutes and everybody will teach you about neoliberalism, right? It is not a high theory concept. It is a social movement concept that's entered the US academic theoretical machine from Central America and Mexico. And the reason that and of course, the history of the US and Latin America with respect to neoliberalism is intimately bound up with each other. And I won't go all the way down that road, although I'm really tempted. So that's one example of a really important theoretical construct. Other theoretical constructs that it seems to me we could benefit a lot from developing in relationship to the history of Mexico and Latin America more broadly. I've been thinking a lot about debt and the growing influence of debt on all sorts of personal and state relationships as a form of bondage, a form of unfreedom. And I've been thinking about that in relationship to Neil Roberts, our colleague at Williams College political scientist, and his work on freedom as marionage. So he's thinking about the figure of the Maroon, the escaped slave, in relationship to where did the notion of freedom as an important political concept come from. And he suggests that it develops out of formerly enslaved communities in a different way than it develops out of Hobbes and the liberal tradition. Read the book, it's fabulous. But the interesting thing is, you could look at Maroon communities in the Caribbean and Veracruz, and you could also just as much look to Massachusetts in the Quack Walker case, which is a remarkable example of where freedom came from, which was a political tradition. Quack Walker was a formerly enslaved person who sued for his own freedom and won it and abolished slavery in the Massachusetts colony. Like, these are really parallel notions that have developed in common. So it seems to me both that we have a lot of examples of how the Mexican Academy and the Mexican street are stronger theoretically, and how we might benefit a lot from thinking across these borders.
Thank you. Ventura.
Well, I'd like to start with rephrasing the question that was asked of the audience earlier about how each of your subfields and disciplines could benefit by further study in Mexico. I think I'd like to have you think about what we're going to ask for everybody to answer the question, but a better way to think about this is how could your studies in subdisciplines or fields benefit through an analysis by Mexican scholars of this country. There's a lot of discussion that appears to be going one way, and the study of Mexico, or the study of a group in Mexico, as opposed to reconceptualizing that and thinking about a study of the United States from Mexican scholars in Mexico. I think that's a really important way to think. The other thing that comes back to language that my colleagues talked about, I agree with the bibliography and having a mentor. My archaeological colleagues in Mexico, one of the things that infuriates them the most is graduate students that come down, do an analysis, come back, publish in English, and act as if they have discovered X, when X was discovered years and years and years ago. But they're not reading the literature. They're not looking at the relevant lineage that you're doing in English, which brings me to the publishing in English, or being forced to be an international scholar and having to learn English. There's something else that I think that we need to address that is crucially important, and that is the coin of the realm in academia is publish. Where do you publish? You publish in English, and you publish in particular journals. And if you dare do that in another language, as an assistant professor, you do it at your own peril. Because there's a really good chance you're not going to get tenure. After tenure, well, that's a different story, isn't it? But I've seen this firsthand. I've witnessed it in my department. And it forces a barrier, an intellectual barrier that has to be, the burden is upon the scholar to meet that need, to publish in those in whatever journals are in your field, in English, first and foremost. And then, after you make it through that tenure process, then you can safely go ahead and start and begin publishing in the language of the communities that you're in. But there are very real consequences, and they're driven by the universities. And I don't have an answer to that, but I do think it needs to be acknowledged. I'm sorry, what was the...
And so, given your very deep immersion in archaeology in Mexico, the question was what kinds of theoretical influences are coming from the other direction, from Mexico into your field, into your scholarship, that we should reflect on?
Well, one of the biggest ones that I think I've seen that's personally affected me is the involvement, the direct involvement of communities in which the archaeology is taking place. And not just hiring them to do the excavation, but training people, giving them a skill set. When I was working at Teul, I came up with a how-to with regards to excavating a step-by-step process that was written in Spanish for people who were thinking about going back to school. These were young folks that didn't have any formal training, but were engaged in the excavation, being paid by the researchers. And there were there's a lot of outreach to the community of offering different types of jobs in lab analysis and giving real skill sets, GPR, ground penetrating radar, GPS work. All of these things were skills that they could be taken and used at other sites. And so you're seeing more and more of that here in the States. It's referred to as indigenous archaeology. But I was seeing that radically performed in the late 90s and early 2000s, years before I was actually seeing it up here. And I think that was one of the profound takeaways for me.
Great, thank you. As we round toward the sort of end of this seminar, I want to give Ellen a chance to reflect on what she's heard. She's our respondent for this panel. I'm going to leave enough time at the very end for the panelists to provide some summary comments, for the audience to engage in any way they would like to. But I want to give you a good chunk of time, Ellen, to tell us what you're hearing out of this conversation, what you think the highlights are, any reflection you'd like to offer from your own point of view.
Thank you. Well, what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is I've been thinking a lot about this question since I received it. And I'd kind of like to reframe a little bit, to think about how these collaborations can really benefit to make us have the power to make us much better educators for the social good. And let me explain what I mean by that. You know, in today's political environment, we know that our students and us, we're all going to try to figure out where's our role in social activism, where's the front lines. And what we're talking about really relates to that for me. You know, some people will thrive on organizing and rallies, and others who, that's not really the forte or where they go. And for many of us as academics, our roles, you know, we've traditionally seen is to background research and theory and analysis. But I want to say that what we do in the classroom is for many of us, or I think should be, a location of political activism. And everything that people are talking about here just resonates with what I've written and what I'm thinking about. Because I believe that we possess something more profound than just intellectual skill sets for many of these students. And especially those of us who've done this transnational work and have really taken it into ourselves via our work with academics or local communities. So yeah, I do totally think that we need to be teaching history and intersectionality and everything else we talked about. But I also have come to very firmly believe over the last 30 years of teaching that intellectual knowledge isn't just listened to enough on its own. It doesn't really reach students at an embodied and emotive level. who, like most of us, or all of us, I think, have been really profoundly changed by doing cross-border work, no matter where we started, whether we are Indigenous or like me, and you are Jew. And as compared to people I know who maybe have different life experiences that have not really had the level of reflection that makes them look at it from, this deeply embodied way, I guess I'd say. So for me, my work was not with other academics or scholars. It actually was with this extended family and other people with whom I work with. And I've kept very close contact with those people in LA and through Facebook. I have reconnected with people in Mexico and some of the kids who have immigrated to California, and it's been really fabulous. I got my scholarly publications out of the work, and I got my tenure out of it. But more significantly, I came away with something that really is not easy to articulate in academic terms, and has really been this scholarly. It's something really intangible. I came back from med school 20-some odd years ago. And this is what I think resonates with students, regardless of their ethnic class background. When I taught at UCLA, I was teaching lots of Latino students how to think about culture, and now I'm teaching, all kinds of students. When I first came here, it's mostly Europe, American, Massachusetts students, and now it's somewhat more diverse. It's really different. But what this is taught me is how essential it is pedagogically to interconnect the intellectual and the emotional skill sets for the students. So I'm basically talking about both faculty and students doing experiential learning. So what I try to have some of the students is that emotive, personal level, the deep respect for people that you can't help but get when you do this kind of work. They start understanding different concepts of culture, cultural reality, and it becomes a way for students to start asking new questions about their own histories and their own place in the world. So I've learned mostly, I guess, that I don't have to bang our students over their head to get them to think about the socio-political implications of their own positionalities, people's positionalities. When they bring that heart and their minds together, they really do discover it for themselves. And I think it's far more, and it resounds so much more deeply than if I were just telling them. And this is even students who come into classes with totally denying any kind of structural differentiation or privilege or anything like that. So basically, my transformation looks off on them. So I truly believe that one of the greatest values of multinational collaborations that we've all been talking about is to bring the classrooms to fundamental political activism, frontlines of political activism through personal transformation. And all of you have really exemplified this, partially your own passions, but the way you have just brought it all together. And one of the things that came out so very strongly is this theme of violence, be it physical violence or conceptual violence, and obviously we're talking about violence and bones and reconstructing or reconsidering what does this mean when we see a particular bone cut on a bone. And it's taking our stories that we've always told about those people. And it's giving them not just a different picture for the sake of giving them a different picture, but because you're actually getting some real knowledge. The violence of losing a child. There's nothing more profound than that. But the different stories again, those all the stories we tell, how we tell those stories, how we frame them. Losing your indigenous identity, multicultural identity. It's going to change over time, but how it's done, what it's replaced by, and just replacing. Losing one's language, losing the intellectual, the whole concept of intellectual honesty is really strong as we need to. How do we honor what other people have done? I started thinking as you were talking about, I still have those books, on my shelf where I looked at like housing design in Spanish. I said, but how often do we do that? It's too much like hard work, and it takes too much time to do a tenure package to be able to do it.
Does anyone on the panel want to talk about these issues in your classroom in response to Ellen's challenge?
Yeah, I think this work is, and my work in this was profoundly impacted how I teach. And the interconnectedness of teaching, research, scholarship at the graduate level and the undergraduate level is, there's such a synergetic effect, I can't make them parcel. My graduate students, several of which work in Mexico, have benefited from these connections that I initially made early on in my career. My undergraduate students who have never been to Mexico, I think are benefiting because I'm humanizing the concepts that I'm talking about. One of the things that I struggle with as a researcher, as a violence researcher, and I'll preface this by saying I don't have the answer. Other than that, I think the answer is no. Can you write about violence without enacting violence? Is it possible to write about violence without causing harm? And I don't think it is. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, obviously, but if you think about this, you're asking somebody to relive a horrific moment in their life for the benefit and the privilege of you theoretically analyzing. And in the storytelling, you're creating a narrative, you're privileging a narrative. Maybe you're writing about the perpetrator at the expense of the victim, maybe you're writing about the victim at the expense of the perpetrator. Maybe you're not even thinking about the community and the impact that had in the community, the social bonds that become weakened. As you're trying to understand how this act of violence becomes normalized and used, right? That's the main thing. This is, as an anthropologist, I possibly I'm struggling with, right? We don't believe that there's a biological predisposition to violence, okay? So if we toss that out the window, why is violence prevalent? What are the cultural norms that allow it to exist? How do we learn language? And how do we then repeat the cycle? Well, seeing them firsthand allows me to have those as part of my pedagogical teaching, both at undergraduates and graduate students, getting them to think about some of these broader socioeconomic questions in terms of disparities of global violence. This is what Paul Farmer would call structural violence, or what Tom would refer to as structural violence, or cultural violence. So it all comes back. The research comes into the teaching influences the research. The students, the way they frame their questions to me, oftentimes affords me an opportunity to rethink about my own theories, to go back and ask new questions.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on the classroom?
Sorry.
Laura,
And so I haven't, since I've been here, gotten to teach a ton about Latin America. As department chair, I teach actually whatever course is not covered in my department, which has made me very flexible. But it also gives me an opportunity to think about, how is Latin America relevant to these questions? And so I'm always throwing Latin America materials into courses that otherwise are not about it. But mostly I've been incredibly lucky to have the opportunity to mentor a lot of graduate students who've worked in Mexico and elsewhere in Latin America. And I would say that those have been marvelous collaborations, and from which I've learned more than I suspect I've offered. But the opportunity to teach Latin American materials in courses where students aren't expecting it keeps making me make it real. Like, really, what does this have to do with feminist theory? What does this really have to do with our exploration of sexual harassment and sexual violence. So I would say that it's actually been incredibly helpful to me to think about the U.S. as part of the Americas, no matter what I'm doing. You know, there was this funny moment a couple of summers, 2 summers ago, when after Brexit, suddenly people were like, you know what? Nationalism, it could happen here. And Trump could get elected. And it was this moment of great alarm. And I realized more people think of themselves as still connected in some way to England than they do to the Americas. Because the problem of a nationalist right is all over Mexico and Canada, to say nothing of the United States, but never mind. So, like, the problem of how we understand ourselves in this place as part of this continent is bizarre. And so that's one of the things that I'm always trying to bring to our students.
Yeah, so in terms of the teaching, I have to say that I feel very privileged, both at the undergraduate and undergraduate level with the students that come to our classes and to my class in particular. And I think that it has everything to do with the things that my colleagues and I would do in different parts of the Spanish and Portuguese speaking world. And the reason why I feel privileged is because when you're working with a different language, and that's our topic, like in Spanish and Portuguese, you are naturally talking about differences. You're talking about differences in literature classes, you're talking about differences in culture classes, cinema, whatever, and you're talking about differences in language and linguistics courses. Right? We are discussing differences every day. So at the undergraduate level, when we have our students that come to our classes and to explore the differences that we represent, and by the way, the faculty in our program is now 80% immigrant or 85% immigrant or faculty in our program. So we have different perspectives that we are, and the students who are there, they're truly interested in that. So I also teach classes on Brazilian culture and Portuguese language, and I have, so right now I'm teaching a course on Brazilian culture, historical and cultural changes from the 1960s to today, and I have 19 students in my class, and 14 of them are heritage speakers, and out of our Portuguese major, 70% are Alana students, are minority students. So I feel very fortunate because these people, some of them haven't left Massachusetts, but their parents are from different parts of the world, and they are discovering this world. And at the graduate level, I truly wish, and going back to the question and my answer about language, I feel very fortunate because we have a graduate program, a PhD program that is divided primarily in linguistics and languages, but with students from all over North America, Latin America, and the Iberian Peninsula, then we live a reality that I know that other graduate programs can't live, or at this point, because we have students from Mexico, we have students from Mexico, Ecuador, Colombia, Puerto Rico, Spain, Portugal, Brazil, and and I can go on. I'm pretty sure I forgot other countries that are represented in our program, and we have American students in our graduate program, and so the exchange of ideas. I mean, when you have a young scholar that came from Mexico to the U.S. and a young scholar from the U.S. that meets a Mexican, and they can both speak both languages. And the Mexican scholar, the Mexican young scholar in our PhD program said, because I read Fulano and Mengano, right, and X and Z, and then the American scholar can say, and I read W and Y, and both of them can go to the other sources and read them in the language that it was written, right? it's amazing. It's an amazing experience for sharing knowledge across borders. I know that we are in a very peculiar situation. It's a prerequisite of our program that all students speak Spanish and English, right? Our graduate program. You can't get into our graduate program if you don't have a certain degree of sophistication in your Spanish and your English. So those are young scholars from different parts of the Spanish and Portuguese speaking world and from the US. But that is the kind of a reality that's only possible because we are communicating. We are in a program that allows for that. And I wish, and if there are stories like that in other graduate programs, for example, I would love to hear.
No, what we're speaking to is what I always envision as real internationalization of those universities, or universities in the Americas, because the fact is that there's only a handful of us outside of language programs who can teach in other languages, and with requirements changing as they have in the past and so on, there's, it used to be that you had to have language in those to the science program. Now you can replace that language with methods, with like some sort of one or two methods requirements so that language gets reduced to a method as opposed to an experiential immersion experience or something that enables you to access information and knowledge in ways that no particular set of instruments will ever enable. And I think that would include astronomers, right, in being confident. So this is just to say, for a couple of things, have the future of internationalization across the borders. Yeah, sure. I'm speaking to Marshall. That I really think, that just because it has been the case that people can publish in another language before tenure, or that people can't, that I think that it speaks to the necessity of augmenting graduate and faculty level exchanges. So it isn't about the American field schools experience that we had when we were 16, which usually creates, very fluent language, makes very fluent language acquisition that don't very much helps for that image, right? So I really think there are multiple reforms that need to happen, deep-seated changes in the university so that we can really celebrate knowledge across borders in a way that we all are very enthusiastic ways. It should be said that this initiative arose in part because immediately in response to the borders being closed in ways that would impede knowledge production and other production for that matter. But assuming one way to protect that is to move forcibly in ways that would make the university factor more.
Let me bring this to a close by reflecting on exactly that point and picking up on Ellen's very helpful commentary about the political nature of the conversation. As you know, it's not an accident that this program was put together. It was put together directly in response to everything that is threatened now for our students, for our faculty, for our own intellectual health as a consequence of the potential blockage of the free communication of ideas that travels with people. It's not an accident because this university, like most other universities, depends on that kind of free exchange. And we would be we are already being irreparably harmed by the kinds of interventions that we are seeing in Washington, which can't end too soon. And I think it is the responsibility of all of us in the university world to withstand, to resist, to develop relationships that can't be mangled by that kind of policy intervention to the extent that we're able. And I don't want to minimize how hard that is and the barriers that are being thrown up to making that actually true. Every time we turn around, there is a new and artful threat to the security, safety, and well-being of our students and our international community. But I do want to say that to the extent we are able, this is a mission that matters a great deal to the Amherst campus, to the rest of the university system, to the president of the university, and I'm happy to say, in general, to the state of Massachusetts, which may be, Massachusetts, New York, and California may be their own country with respect to these issues, because I think these are the states in which awareness of the rich heritage, the extraordinary importance of understanding ourselves as part of the Americas and not as an island up here in the northern piece of it, is actually respected. But that is not something we can take for granted, as we've learned all too clearly in the last year. And so I want to conclude by thanking Calvin and his colleagues and my colleagues on this panel, not just for sharing their thoughts and ideas, but for continuing to fight the good fight in their classrooms, in their scholarship, in the relationships that they maintain and telegraph across the border. To the Consul General, who I know wasn't able to stay this late, but has made it very clear to me that he is quite committed to working with us throughout the university system, in actually maybe deepening and extending these ties, precisely because we know they are under threat and there isn't anything here that we can take for granted. On that note, I again want to ask you to give a round of applause to my colleagues. And to our fearless leader, Calvin, to bring this to a close.
I feel I've been set up for all sorts of stuff. Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Sonia. I really have not intended to do very much other than say a word of thanks to all who have traveled from far and near, especially the colleagues from Mexico, from Boston, from across the river, to say that this has been a wonderful and rich day of conversation and communication. And certainly I, like many of us, have always been fascinated by the colorful pictures that they published from the Hubble telescope, for example, but can come away saying that I feel like I know 1,000% more about astronomy and its richness than I did when things started this morning. Although, not being an astronomer, but being a Star Trek geek, I will point out that it is 40 Eridani and not Epsilon Eridani. That is the whole world of welcome. Nearby constellations. I don't usually relish at moments like this, especially when we have such a wonderful and uplifting conversation throughout the day about the real meat of what we do in the universities and in the academy as cross-border collaborators. And being a humanist myself by training, to reduce things to the pragmatic, but oftentimes it is important to make those statements as well, to highlight the benefits that accrue to us regionally, nationally, and transnationally as a result of the kinds of work that our universities does. As at the opening of International Education Week today, the International Education Institute publishes its annual Open Doors report that talks in terms of the numbers of US students and scholars exchanged all over the world and the economic impact of that exchange on the country. And just today's figures released show that in the last year, there was a $36.9 billion economic impact on the United States as a result of having foreign students and scholars in our midst, and resulting in the creation of 450,000 new jobs. This, in Massachusetts, is 36,000 jobs and $2.6 billion of economic impact. And in Congressional District 2, which is where we are, we account for 10% of that in the state. So I think that the work that we do is crucially important because it touches each and every one of us, and each and every one of us in our wider communities. And one of the themes that I've heard coming up again and again, and I'm very glad that we sort of ended on that, is precisely the notion of internationalization at work. That the work of crossing boundaries, the work of producing knowledge, has to go on in every facet of what we do. We send students abroad, we welcome students here, but those are fractions of percentages. 5% of UMass students will study abroad, 2%, 2.2 to 3% of US national students will study abroad. So it's not a huge number. Sometimes it seems ubiquitous to us, but these are minuscule numbers in terms of movement. So the real movement has to happen in the pedagogy, in our classrooms, in this kind of engagement. And we need to be mindful of the richness that international communities at home amongst us bring. And on that note, I would like to say that we will end International Education Week in this very room where we began on a Friday afternoon with a UMass Amherst faculty panel celebrating the richness of international diversity in our classrooms. So if you are still here on Friday, please come back and join us for the close of International Education Week. But I would just once again like to say thank you very much for the wonderful conversations. Thank you to Sonia and Blackholes for really stepping up and organizing this event, and to colleagues in astronomy and history and Smith College for helping pay for various parts of the day, including your delicious lunch, and to the provost and chancellors and the president's office for their material and spiritual